And I'm back on YouTube. So for a long time I have not posted anything on YouTube because I felt like I posted everything that I know about dropshipping and I didn't want to repeat myself. But in this time I was still being on YouTube and watching what other gurus wanted to post and what kind of stuff are being taught on YouTube. And I found this like one little interesting niche, which is actually a huge niche that nobody actually talks about. Everybody says like, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, etc. And that's actually what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about strategic planning, business planning, and also personal planning. How can you effectively plan what you're learning, when you're learning, what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're gonna allocate the resources so you're being faster in life than anybody else. Everybody says you have to do this, that, but nobody gives you like a better overview of how this things works. And for me personally, it comes very natural that I'm thinking about strategic planning. I always is like the first question that I ask myself is, okay, how long do I need to learn it? How do I learn it the fastest way? Do I really need it? For what kind of things do I need it? Do I need it indirectly? Does it make sense? Does it make money? Does it bring me joy? All those questions I have listed in notes. Most of the things I will remember spontaneously, but a lot of things have to come up by strategic analysis. So I want to present you some concepts that I learned over the time that I'm using naturally. Um, Obviously, I've used some from books and some of them I created myself or paraphrased, but in this video I want to present you in general what this whole topic brings. And for future videos I will probably discuss the certain topics one by itself because there's a lot to see on each topic. So strategic planning is a big topic in itself. And let's start with an easy one, right? So for example, people ask me sometimes, okay, if I want to start a business, what's kind of the things that I have to do in my private life directly and some that I don't have to do directly. So plan personal. So one of the most common things that I see that is happening in the entrepreneurship world, they are starting to read those books about personal development. They want to become better. They want to become a better version of themselves. Um, but the thing that is stucking most of the time is you gotta build first your business and then later on you have much more time and much more resources to spend on personal development things. So for example, when it comes to the topic of a girlfriend or boyfriend, it takes time and a lot of focus. You can't just start to date and just do it on the side. It needs full requirement and nobody can juggle it in the same way a lot of other people do. So in general, when I plan to do things, I usually ask myself the question, what is it something that I learned on the most fundamental level? Not something that I've learned on YouTube, not something that somebody gave me as an advice, but what's the most fundamental thing that I have been taught from maybe very fundamental books or maybe I've learned even in school. And I'll give you later some examples of things that I learned in school that are the most fundamental, but I usually try to stick with them. So what usually people say is focus on things like girlfriend or fun later when you have built your fundament. Because when your fundament is standing and usually you have like a time when you hustle a lot, you get a lot of things done, then later you can focus on pleasure. And these kind of things are a good add-on. If for any reason you already have a girlfriend or boyfriend, I'll just say girlfriend for the next part. If you already have a girlfriend when you start a business and your personal development journey, it's all good. You can keep her, you will be probably more productive overall. But if you try to like date, etc., trust me, you will not find the perfect partner on the first couple of dates. And then even if you find this person, you gotta work on the relationship. So if you wanna have a great partner, you really have to work on yourself, and you will figure out that you probably have like some toxic things that you have to work on, etc. So these kind of things take time, which are being taken away from your business, right? It's not like you get a girlfriend, she will support you on all the things that you're doing, and your life will be much more productive. That's not how it works. Another thing that is quite interesting is if you should move. For example, you live in your parents' basement, or you live in a certain city, and you're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs are moving to Bali, Dubai, people in America, they move to Austin or Miami, and you are asking yourself, should I do the same? Should I focus on moving first somewhere until so I can build the right relationships and grow? What I would say, to be honest, is it depends on the location and your budget and your support system. So here you have to do like an analysis of all the pros and cons, and you have to be as realistic as possible to decide that. So you gotta ask yourself the question: do you live with parents that are supportive and don't disturb you at least with work? Or do you have parents that are like super against you and what you're doing, and basically you can only be productive 2 hours in a day, right? And you don't even have the chance to go out in the co-working space or whatsoever. In this case, the most productive thing that probably you should do is move out, either in your city or somewhere else. Then the next question that you should ask yourself is what kind of person you are. There's basically like three types of workers. One type of worker is the deep worker. He has to work somewhere where it's super quiet and he can just focus on those tasks. Then you have the coordinator or the manager. He's the one, he needs to be around people, but not with too many people, with a small kind of group. He needs to be present. He needs to work either in a cafe or a co-working space. And then at the last, you have the communicator. That's the person who has to be constantly around people. He has to be around the right kind of people the whole time. And every time he sees an opportunity, he always reminds himself, okay, I know this person, I know Jack, I know Tom. Let's bring them together and let's make something. So it depends what kind of person you are. If you're a deep worker, it doesn't really matter where you are because probably everything will be online anyways. But if you are the second or third type of person, you will have to communicate on a daily basis with people. So even if you're finished working online, for example as a coordinator, you still need to go out and meet with people, and you will see that opportunity costs are high on this part. Opportunity costs are the costs that you're losing for things that you're not doing in that case. So in that case, it would be, if you're finished with work, you have to, as a human being, and we are human beings, you have to speak with somebody. You have to kind of report to him. He has to make yourself accountable to things. And if you're, for example, with your parents or with your siblings, and you report to them and you kind of don't get anything back, you just get like bad feedback back, basically you're losing on that time. And now calculate how much time you're spending speaking with them. Let's say it's like 2 hours in a day. In a week it would be 14 hours. In a month it would be already much more. So this time would have been more productive if you had the right friends already at that time. And probably if you're starting with business, you don't have the right friends, right? You don't have the right friends, and you don't know where to go out, especially if you're like in a small city. Like it's really hard to find the exact friends that are helping you on this journey, etc. So overall, you have to calculate whether it's worth, from the time and money perspective, to move to another city where you have those contacts more easily. Why do people move to Bali? Because it's quite cheaper. It's probably cheaper than most Western countries. They are working on their things. They don't have to spend much money on things, right? It's cheap. And you have the right network. The difference here is it depends again. You'll probably not stay in Bali for quite a lot of time. 4 years ago, people moved to Chiang Mai because it was, I would say, even half as cheap as Bali. You had a great network, etc. Then people started to move from Chiang Mai to Bali since only the beginners were in Chiang Mai and more advanced people moved to Bali. Um, Now, as I'm seeing, if people kind of achieve their things in Bali, etc., they will stick either with a small group or they will move to a place with much more the density of entrepreneurs are just bigger. So you have much more entrepreneurs in this small circle, and you rather move to places like Dubai as opposed to other places. When it comes to America, people told me that the density in New York or San Francisco is still much bigger when it comes to business, and the pleasure side or lifestyle plus business is kind of better in Miami or Austin. So in this case, you basically have to balance. People are moving first to Austin, and if they are like super serious with business and they don't care about private life, they rather stay in San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, or New York. So this is one thing that you have to consider. Obviously, you have to consider the living costs if you're made for living alone. Otherwise, you need to find somebody with whom you're living, and you can get into a really nasty situation when you live with somebody and you don't relate to them and you don't have enough money to move out, so you have to spend 6 months with them living together. Or you actually can live alone and you go to a nice co-working space, you get some things done, everything is much cheaper, and this is the whole picture of it. So I talked a lot about the personal side here. Let's talk about some other things that you can strategically plan. It's, for example, the topic of food. You probably read a lot about what kind of diets do exist and that you never got taught to have the right diet in place when you need it. And the thing is, you get taught that maybe intermittent fasting is cool, then eat a lot of like small portions, then you hear about, I don't know, carnivore diet or whatsoever, and you have to test all of them out. Somebody tells you this, somebody tells you that, and you wondered with whom do you have to stick to. So the point is, when it comes to food topic, and this is a topic which is probably very controversial, but you should stick to the things that you got taught in school. And in school, you probably learned about the food pyramid. And I'm sorry if you didn't get taught that. I learned that in fourth grade and another time in sixth grade or seventh grade. And this is literally the most fundamental stuff that you learn. The stuff that you have to take the most is water, right? Then you have carbs, which are solid carbs like noodles, rice. Then it's about, we can actually Google that, food pyramid. So yeah, this overview is pretty cool. So here, the most important thing that you have to take most of the day, the most is water, etc. Then you have all the veggies and fruits. I was wrong on this one. Yeah, this is more important. Then you have carbs. Then you have milk products, fish products, and meat products. Then you have fats, sources, and then chips. Why is that important? This is important because this is the most fundamental thing. And if you don't follow this, you will get into some problems. So what you get taught in school, no, what you get taught probably if you start doing fitness is they tell you you have to eat more protein than anything else. But if you start reading about it online, they say it's a myth. like you can gain muscles without eating too much protein. You don't need to eat 2 grams on 1 kilogram or even 3 kilograms on one. The thing is, it's not so important to do that. You have to eat more veggies and carbs just to get the calories in place, and veggies because they are healthy, they provide the most nutrition, they are good for your body. And with meat, it takes a lot of time to process in your body. You have to, they're expensive, right? Like if you ever bought for yourself, you kind of see how expensive they are. So that's why it's good to just eat a little bit of it. And with the others, again, I would just stick with this one. It's a whole topic for itself. It's very controversial. Probably somebody will say in the comments intermittent fasting is better and you should stick with that. But in my opinion and what I saw works the best is just stick with the most fundamental stuff, and later on you can move to other things. You can test out things, and if you're testing out things, you have to have the money and do like a really A/B testing to see where things are moving. Obviously, there's always a better diet for yourself, but for 90% of people, if you stick with the basics and if you don't overconsume on too fatty stuff, processed stuff, sugars, etc., and you eat more veggies than carbs and more carbs than proteins, you're good to go. Right? So let me see. So then there's this thing of the real personal development. So the first concept that you probably learn is you can achieve anything in life. You should do whatever you want to do, and you should do meditation and train and drink a lot of water and learn an instrument and go for a walk outside and get daily sun exposure and read a lot of books and spend less time on social media. Those are all things that you can do. But here's the catch. If you ever tried it, and you probably did, otherwise you wouldn't watch those kind of videos that I'm presenting here, you realize that you can't stick to it. There's some things that are easier to do, which are coming naturally. For me, it's like drinking water, it comes very natural. But then there's things that you have to kind of push yourself towards to. And you have to find a mentor that helps you, or you have to read a lot about it to do it right. So when it comes to personal development, what I would literally suggest is follow some advices that I'm giving you and stick with the basics. The most basic things that are natural and helpful for your whole being is meditation, it's meditation, it's journaling, it's reading books, and it's exercise. So we probably all agree that exercise is the most fundamental thing. It's just human nature. You have to do exercise, and exercise, again, it's a very controversial topic, but exercise doesn't mean you go to the gym and you pump a lot of big weights, but exercise just means you move your body. You move your body. The most fundamental thing that you can do is just walking. So if you take like a 1 hour walk in the morning or after work, that's the most fundamental thing. To get a little bit more exercise and to sweat a little bit, it's a little bit of a HIIT training, so high interval training. that's the most cheating thing that you can do to get the exercise as fast as possible. You run a little bit around, you basically strengthen your endurance, you do a little bit of strength training, and that's it. You don't need to go this, you don't need to play tennis, you don't need to do all the things that you basically learn in those things. It depends again on your preferences again, but this is the most fundamental thing. You get it taught in school that you have to exercise. That's a fundamental thing, and if you don't exercise for multiple months, you will feel bad. Your body stops working the way it used to work, and it's just gonna be overall bad for you, for your productivity, for everything. So we can't skip on that, unfortunately. We are bound to the human experience. Reading books and journaling is kind of controversial, and people ask, okay, why is not something like, I don't know, playing an instrument more important than reading books and journal and or meditation? And again, obviously you can argue about it, and maybe you're right with some other things, but for example, there's like one interesting video about it from the habit tier list, and I kind of figured this out before them, but it was kind of cool to see the habits that they are listed are most important. As you can see here, are the same things as I listed in my sheet. So credit to Improvement Pill on this one. Improvement Pill posted a lot of things on improvement and what to do, and I found it really cool that they did one video about, okay, what is actually important of all of this that I'm teaching you here, what should you really focus on, and what's like the second things that you should do. And again, like things like eating on time or doing your laundry, etc., that's something that has to come naturally. You don't need to work on it. It's not like you have to do actively the habit. But reading books or journaling is such a leverage boost to your productivity and how fast you're coming into life that you have to do it actively. So it needs to be a habit that needs to be established. All right, back to the thing. So when it comes to personal development, basically you have to also understand that you can't change your personality. So everything what you're training and what you're doing, you can't change your personality. The only thing that you can do is to improve your skills. So when it comes to reading books or journaling, that has nothing to do with your personality. Everybody should know how to read and write. Some people do it better, some people do it less better, but it's something that everybody does. It's the same as everybody has to know how to do basic math, or everybody has to know how to transport themselves, either by walking, riding a car, or whatsoever. That's something like completely necessary to do other things. In a business, you have to constantly communicate either online or have video calls or whatsoever. So communication is a big part of everything. That's how you process things. So one thing that people actually really miss out is that they focus more on personality development. They see, okay, I'm an arrogant person, so I want to become less arrogant. And yeah, you can work on it, but the incline of you being more arrogant will probably stay. Or the same way somebody's introverted, probably the introverted side will always stay with you. So what you should not do is spend a lot of time into thinking that you can become an extrovert, or let's say you're better in math than writing. You should not try to focus on a business or any hobby that has more to do with the other part, but you should focus more on a hobby that has to do with math, because that's a natural advantage to you. And our time on earth is limited. It's not infinite. So it's better if you spend your time doing things that you enjoy doing and you're good at. Enjoying comes from the part that you're good at this. It comes naturally to you, so you can do the things very easily. And the last thing that I want to mention to the personal development things, if you just focus on these four things, basically you're gonna learn to avoid other stuff like using social media. If you're used to reading and you kind of figure out this habit, you figure out where to get the books, what kind of books are interesting for you to read, what kind of books do exist. There's fiction books, non-fiction books, educational books. Then you will figure out probably that a lot of those mainstream books are bullshit, and you will move on to other books that have more value in them. Like when it comes to management, for example, you will start to read books like High Output Management instead of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And you get into the habit of reading instead of consuming your content on social media. You will realize that everything in written form, there's much more density of information than anywhere else. Like in audio is better if it comes to getting opinions, but when it comes to information density, and that's why you get in school like written things, you don't get audio files or whatsoever, just because with the written text you can write it one time and then you can change it, so you dense the information the more. But if you have audio, you basically listen to the speaker thinking, and that wastes a lot of your time and his time, more of your time. So this is the strategic planning, and I'll talk a lot about those kind of ideas in the future on YouTube. If you want me to talk about a certain topic specifically, how I think about it and how I'm strategic planning, what kind of questions I'm asking myself when it comes to strategic planning, just post it in the comments on YouTube down below. Give it a thumbs up so I know this topic is interesting for you and you want to see more of that coming. And yeah, stay strategic.